The Protyre Motorsport Ginetta GT Championship, the final race of the season here at Brands Hatch is about to get underway. The cars lining up on the grid then under overcast skies, but no threat of rain. A chilly afternoon, but the on-track action we're hoping is going to heat up nicely over this final 20-minute race of the season. The championship overall has been settled for the second place in the pro category. That's still up for grabs. A Garlic family rivalry that's been brewing all year, really, is now going to fittingly keep us entertained, I think, through this final race of the season. Just 7 points between Connor Garlic and Luke Garlic, the Garlic brothers, after a tumultuous second race earlier on today that saw Mckenzie Douglass, the race one winner, taken out of contention with a late race puncture. Not the only one to have tyre troubles in that race earlier on today. Hopefully they've managed to get to the bottom of that ahead of race number 3. Nick White picked up the win, therefore the AM driver starts from pole position alongside Robert Cronin. Guest driver doesn't score points, but would love to try and end his weekend, his debut weekend, with a win. Luke Garlic starts third, the first of the Garlic siblings, Harry Mangan alongside, but Connor Garlic will be right behind his brother and knows that if he can stay within a position or so of him, he should still be able to hang on to second in the points. Callum Noble will start alongside him sixth, then Ed Akers and Seth Henry, two more guest drivers on row 4. Fifth row shared by Mckenzie Douglass and Peter Mangan. Obviously Mckenzie one to watch, he's been the fastest driver here this weekend, but has to come from 9th on the grid now, and I don't think we've got Matt Shaw at the back of the field. He's sat out race 2, and I think, yes, it's going to be the same case for race number 3. So, as I said, 7 points in it, Luke Garlic to Connor Garlic. Now, you score 35 points for winning your class, you score 30 points for finishing second, you score 26 points for finishing third. So, in other words, if Luke Garlic can win the class, doesn't have to win the race, just has to be the first pro driver home, which he was in race 2, then he needs his brother Connor to finish third or lower, which he did in the race earlier on today. So in other words, if we get a rinse and repeat from race 2, then actually Luke Garlic could steal second place away from Connor Garlic. It is a bit complicated by the different classes that we've got out there racing at the same time, but it is doable here for Luke Garlic if things all go his way. But he will remember back to, well, about this time yesterday, really, when he was starting on the front row alongside Mckenzie Douglass, challenging for the lead, arrived at Druids, got punted by Matt Shaw, and, well, that was, it seemed at the time, his chances of finishing second in the championship gone, but Connor Garlic then had a puncture later on. Luke ended up outscoring him, managed to outscore him again in race number 2, and now looks to try and do the same thing again in race 3. It's been a third and a second in class so far this weekend for Luke Garlic, a third and a fourth for Connor, who hasn't really been at the races this weekend, but can he now find that little bit of magic just when it counts and stop Luke Garlic from snatching that second place away from him in the final race? Well, let's find out. 2 by 2 they run then through Clark Curve. The rolling start awaits. The safety car is in the pit lane. And Nick White, of course, wants to try and get himself another outright race victory if possible. So too Robert Cronin will be challenging from the outside of row 1. Red lights go out. Away they go. And immediately Callum Noble in the 19 car there breaks ranks to the outside of Harry Mangan. But actually he's going to go backwards. He's early on the brakes into paddock and loses a few positions. Luke Garlic into the side of the Cronin, and around he goes. No, Luke Garlic's in the gravel, out of the race. He's taken Cronin with him, and Connor Garlic comes out of all of that potentially in the lead of the class. That is second place overall, but he's ahead of all the other pro drivers. And we've got a problem for Mckenzie Douglass. I think that's a shame. So Douglass has had a really good start. His car slows coming out of Druids Corner, but Luke Garlic is out of the race after contact with Robert Cronin at Paddock Hill Bend, and that now seals the deal. It should now surely be Connor Garlic who will be the runner-up to Mckenzie Douglass in the championship. I don't know what's going on with Douglass's car, though. That car really slowed, didn't it, coming out of Druids? I'm not convinced it made it much further around the lap. We'll try and find him in a moment. No, there it is. Look, he's pulled into the back entrance of the paddock. So, well, that is a shame, isn't it, to say the least. Out of the gravel goes Robert Cronin. Now, don't count him out, because we're going to get a safety car here, surely, for Luke Garlic's car. Yes, we do. I can see safety car already has been scrambled. He will now catch up to the back of the pack, and, well, with others dropping by the wayside, might still have half a chance in this race. Harry Mangan's got damage, and Luke Garlic is furious. Look at him punching the wheel. Now, that is a driver who knows an opportunity that he's been working towards all weekend long has just slipped through his fingers, and you've got to feel for Luke Garlic. That is heartbreaking to see, isn't it? But this matters. You know, a lot of the time, people say to me, well, it's the last race of the season, the championship's been won already, why do the drivers even bother? Who cares who finishes second in the championship? Well, Luke Garlick cares. Luke Garlick definitely cares. And, you know, they've put an awful lot of time, effort and money into this all season long, travelling around the country. And for it all to end that way is heartbreaking. Luke Garlick's car will be recovered, but will go no further in the race. Right then, Nick White leads. Conor Garlick is in second position, and Ed Akers is third. Ed Akers started 7th on the grid. 4th place for Seth Henry, the American, who has travelled over for this one-off appearance at the end of the year. If he could get himself a podium, that would probably tempt him back again next season. Then Peter Mangion 5th, Harry Mangion 6th, Callum Noble 7th, and eventually Robert Cronin will come across the line in 8th position. He may have a little visit to the pit lane just to clear the gravel from the car, but I don't think he ended up a long way into the gravel trap, actually. So should be able to hopefully sort of tag along at the back of the field. There is the safety car look. Robert Cronin, I can tell you, is out at Westfield, so he's a long way back. He almost went a lap down, actually. Mckenzie Douglass's car's stricken as well. That just lost drive. Maybe a drive shaft or a gearbox issue of some sort. I suspect maybe drive shaft, the way that it just suddenly lost all drive and couldn't even make it back into the paddock. Now, is the back of Robert Cronin's car damaged, or is that just a trick of the camera? Now, I think it's okay. He's running a lot of camber on the rear of the car, but I don't think it's crabbing. I don't think there's any suspension damage. We'll get a replay, I'm sure. I'm not entirely sure how Robert ended up getting involved in that. There, meanwhile, is Luke Garlick. Well, he's calmed himself down enough to get the car back to the pit lane, but of course he won't be allowed to take any further part in the race because he has been given outside assistance to rejoin the track. Right, here's the replay. Luke Garlick on the inside there, second car on the inside, Robert Cronin on the outside. He's up the curb. It's impossible to tell from that camera angle who moved on who, but the end result is clear. This might tell us more then. This is on board with Conor Garlick. Luke in front of us, up the curb. And he sort of bounces into the side of Robert Cronin, doesn't he? It's a racing incident, obviously. No malice intended from either driver. But it's that little bounce over the curb from Luke Garlick. Had he not hit the curb, there's every chance they'd have both made it round the corner. But that bounced him into the side of Robert Cronin's car. This was the Luke Garlick view. Let's listen. Oh, horrible feeling, and all of that weight over the nose, a rear-wheel drive car as well. That's why he spun. It's rare, isn't it, for the car on the inside to be the one that ends up pointing the wrong way. They both did on that occasion, but it's because all the weight's on the nose of the car. That little knock on the left front corner transfers all the weight to the front, around it goes, and there was nothing Luke Garlick could do about that, unfortunately. So two of the big names, really, from the season out of the race already. There is Robert Cronin, who's just been watching his brother Colin racing in the Ginetta Junior Championship. I think Colin ended up in the top 10, didn't he, in that race? It was a decent run from young Colin. And now Robert Cronin back on the back of the pack, but because there are only 8 cars still running, there's still a good chance he'll end up with a decent result. Needs to clear some of the AM drivers as quickly as possible, and then set off after the race leaders. Lots of gravel look in the middle of the road where Luke Garlick's car was extricated from the kitty litter. That will be a little bit of a challenge upon the restart of the race. Conor Garlick then sort of sizing up Nick White. Now, as said earlier on, Conor Garlick's not really been at the races. That perhaps is a little bit unfair, but there's no doubt he hasn't had the sort of the outright pace that has propelled him to 2 wins, this year. Several of the podiums. He's been on the podium in almost every race, really, but this weekend it's just not quite been happening for him. In fact, he hasn't won a race, has Conor Garlick, since the second event of the season at Silverstone back in May. So it's been a while since he claimed a class win. He's on course for a class win. Luke Garlick is still going. Now, he's laps down, so it's not going to matter for the championship, but it's always been my understanding that if you are the cause of a safety car and you need to be given outside assistance to rejoin the race, you're not generally allowed to take the restart. But anyway, it's the last race of the year. He'll argue that afterwards, I suppose. It'd be good to have Luke in the race, albeit a lap down. And not therefore going to be much of a factor, but he's just scooting along the Cooper Straight as the rest of the pack are rounding Westfield. I think the lights are going to be out on the safety car this time, so we should get the race back underway. I suppose Luke Garlick wants to finish the race in case Conor falls out of it. If Conor were to retire and Luke Garlick were to finish even one lap down, he'll still pick up some decent points. So if he's allowed to continue, he absolutely will continue. And in the best possible way, be hoping now that some misfortune befalls his brother. But Conor Garlick, I think right now, has eyes only really for Nick White. He may well think that Luke Garlick is out of the race. And that might well alter the way that he is going to drive the remaining 13.5 minutes or so of racing. which is about to get back underway again. Then very slowly Nick White leads them into Clearway's corner, now steps on the loud pedal. Conor Garlick though sort of goes with him really. That was a decent restart from the second place man, puts a gap between himself and Ed Akers in third. And let's keep an eye on Robert Cronin at the back of the field. If that car is undamaged, he should be able to make some moves to the front. Harry Mangan certainly is doing so. Up the inside of Peter Mangan, that shouldn't be a difficult move, and through will go Harry into Paddock Hill Bend. So that of course was two drivers in different classes, so Harry Mangan now really setting off after Nick White. He is the next, after Conor Garlick, he's the next pro class driver. Round Druids Corner they come, plunging downhill. Such a spectacular bit of racetrack that, as they climb up out of Paddock through Druid, drop back down towards you again into Graham Hill Bend, then along the Cooper Straight into Surtees. Anyone going to make a move here? Well, yes, Robert Cronin is. He's up the inside of Callum Noble. You can see that coming. And the Zentek Motorsport driver has to give way to the Fox Motorsport car, which slips up into 7th. So that's one place gain for Cronin. Needs to get through this next group of cars as efficiently as possible before the leaders get too far away, because, of course, we've lost a chunk of racing with that early safety car. And now he has only a third of the race left to try and make as much progress as he possibly can. Harry Mangan on the attack again, up the inside of Seth Henry. Now, Seth is not going to move aside here for some of these more experienced drivers. He's here to learn, and the best way to learn is to get yourself stuck into some racing. And yes, as I suspected, the black flag is now being shown to Luke Garlick. That means you are no longer being scored. You must pull into the pit lane and retire the car, and that's because he was not supposed to continue in the race, having been extricated from the gravel trap. So anyway, he will be summoned in. We've had a move made there. Robert Cronin past Peter Mangan. Harry Mangan still can't actually get past Seth Henry, who drifts a little bit wide through Clearways. He's leaving the door invitingly open for Harry Mangan, but is Harry going to try and step through it into Paddock Hill Bend? Let's see. On the brakes, he looks to the inside. He's late on the brakes, but Seth Henry, I think, will have that one covered. Turns in, didn't want to fully commit to the apex, just in case Harry Mangan's nose was still there, but he does get round the corner cleanly, and Harry Mangan will have to look for another opportunity to get through. This has played beautifully into the hands, hasn't it, of the Robert Cronin car behind. Cronin closing in on these two as they drop down through the left-hander. And Seth Henry, a bit of a cork in the bottle here, but Robert Cronin will be quite happy about that as long as he can find a way through at some point. Or both he and Harry Mangan go to the inside. Mangan commits to a move against Henry, who will have the momentum though on the outside line. Those two are going to be side by side now down the hill. What does Robert Cronin do here? Well, he's not really close enough to do anything right now. He's just got a good view of these two going door handle to door handle down into Hawthorne, this fearsomely quick right-hander. Seth Henry on the inside line. Does Mangan go right round the outside? That's what he's going to try, and that's what he succeeds in doing. Brilliant racing between the two of them. Cronin sees his opportunity now and slips up the inside into Westfield Corner as well, and he will go through too. So Seth Henry, the Breakall Racing car, losing 2 positions, but good clean racing that between the three of them. Now Cronin sets off after Harry Mangan. Now that will be an altogether tougher pass, I suspect. What impressive pace we've had from Robert Cronin this weekend. His first weekend racing the cars, with big changes afoot at Ginetta for 2025. They would love to get a big grid of these, well, actually the new look and the new generation of Ginetta GT Championship cars next year. They'd love to get a few more drivers on the grid, and surely Robert Cronin will be eyeing this up for 2025. He's on the tail of Harry Mangan now into Paddock Hill Bend. Oh, he considered it, didn't he? He was later on the brakes into the first corner. Nicely up and over the curve, tight line on the exit of the corner, and he will now head into Druids Corner up the inside line. Mangan just gets that one covered, and as they exit the turn, Harry Mangan stays at the front of this group. I can see that Luke Garlick's car has now arrived back in the pit lane, so Luke Garlick has heeded the black flag, and there it is, greeted by the Zentek team. That's such a shame for Luke Garlick. You've got a feel for him, but he has certainly shown himself well this year. Luke Garlick with 3 wins, 1 more than his brother, crucially, although Conor might be about to level the score in this race because he's on course not for an overall win necessarily, but certainly looking good for a class win. He's 1.1 seconds behind Nick White, who just set the fastest lap of the race, so that lead gap going out. Robert Cronin, though, closing in on Harry Mangan for 4th position. And Cronin really wants to try and make this move as quickly as he can. He's still got the best part of half the race left to chase after Ed Akers and maybe, just maybe, Conor Garlick. Seth Henry closing back in as well. All 3 of them as one then as they round Sheen Curve and head towards the left-hander at Stirling's. Noses dip down aggressively as they turn into the corner. The camber allows you to carry a little bit more speed through there than you might expect. And where does the move come? Cronin feinting to the inside, not really thinking about the overtake, just trying to distract Harry Mangian, force Harry into braking a little bit later than he wants to, maybe. But the real move, I suspect, may well come at the end of this straight into Paddock Hill Bend. He's less than a car's length behind, more than within striking range, you would imagine. But Harry Mangian knew that, covered the inside line. But on the exit, oh, look at that, Robert Cronin right up over the inside curb. A bit too much curve, though, loses momentum. And Seth Henry sees a chance to get back up the inside. This wasn't in the plan for Robert Cronin. They lean on each other slightly. I suspect Cronin will stay ahead because I'll have the inside line for Graham Hill Bend, but that has most definitely not helped his chances of getting past Harry Mangian swiftly. Just a little bit too much of that inside curb. He had two wheels on the grass, actually, so far to the inside, was he? And did well to gather the slide together, but the slide that ensued was just enough to lose him some momentum. Henry on the grass now as well, coming out of Surtees. Lead gap, by the way, went out, sorry, yeah, still 1.2 seconds. Another new fastest lap for Nick White, a 1:35.137 that time. So he is just creeping clear of Conor Garlick. Akers in third is about 3.5 seconds ahead of this gaggle as well. So Ed Akers, the blue and black car, having by far his best showing of the weekend. Although he was the only driver on the track not to set a personal best lap last time around. The others all getting quicker. And that does suggest they might be able to catch him in the closing stages. Robert Cronin then regrouping, trying to close back in again on Harry Mangian. But that gap, if anything, is going out now, isn't it, as they blast back towards clearways again. Leaders coming through, and this fight now starting to just not fizzle out necessarily, but not quite as intense as it was before. There is a good scrap going on behind them, though, isn't there, between Peter Mangian and Callum Noble. That is for 7th overall, but for 2nd in the AM category. So Peter Mangian in 2nd place. Callum Noble wants that 2nd place, and those two were pretty close as they crossed the line. Only a 10th.5 in it, so nose to tail, really. There goes Harry Mangian. A little bit wide through Druid's corner. But the car looking fast, runs a little bit wide again out of Graham Hill Bend, though, and that is definitely a place where they're monitoring track limits. You need to be careful doing things like that. You can easily find yourself in trouble, and with a penalty to come. These are the little mistakes that Robert Cronin will very much be enjoying seeing out of the 4th place man. The more mistakes Mangian makes, the more likely it is that Cronin might be able to capitalise on one of them, but he's just, again, not close enough into Hawthorne. Seth Henry behind. And the three of them continue on their way through Westfield. Now that time around, Conor Garlick set the fastest lap of the race, a 1:35.0. So just under a 10th quicker than the leader. It's not much, but it's a start. He's starting to come back at him as Mangian dips two wheels on the grass out of Sheen. So another little error there from Mangian. And Robert Cronin now knows that he's got Mangian on the ropes, but can he make a move into Clearway's corner? The answer probably is going to be no, because Mangian will cover the inside, but that might slow him down on the exit. Look, he goes in one car's width tighter, which means that Cronin can probably get that car's width back and go on the exit. He's looking to the inside line, but Mangian having nothing of it. So Cronin dives to the outside line. Is he going to commit to a move into Paddock Hill Bend? I don't think there's going to be the space, but again, watch for the switchback. Wide line in, tight line out. That's the plan for Cronin. Harry Mangian will try to get across to cover. Can he get there in time? The answer, I think, is no. And Robert Cronin surely now will go through. He's late on the brakes. He's got the shorter route through Druids. The car steps out on him slightly, though, and Harry Mangian is still there. He's got the inside line for Graham Hill Bend, and still Cronin can't break through the defences. This has been a great drive from Harry Mangian. A couple of mistakes creeping in, maybe, but he's defending well, and that backs now Cronin into Seth Henry. Seth Henry to the inside at Surtees, and again Seth read that situation really well, saw the battle that was going on in front of him, positioned himself in a place where he could gain a place, and all of a sudden Cronin's got it all to do again. So brilliant fighting going on here back in the pack. Nick White is now 1.4 seconds clear of Conor Garlick, incidentally. He's stolen that fastest lap back again, the 8th lap of the race, and they're still trading fastest laps, those two. And a purple first sector for Nick White as well, so they've obviously saved some tyres here, haven't they? The pace really hotting up in the second half of the race. Still, Harry Mangan hangs on to this 4th position. Now, they are catching, would you believe, despite the battling, Ed Akers. Ed Akers on the previous lap was about 3/10 slower than Harry Mangan. And Mangan on this lap isn't having to defend, so you suspect that that gap might come down again. Nick White is about to better his own fastest lap. I think a 1:34.8 becomes a 34.5. Wow, that was an astonishingly good lap from Nick White. I think he's broken Conor Garlick now. 2 seconds nearly is the gap between the top two. What's the gap? Akers back to Mangan. It's 2.5 seconds, down by 2/10 that time. So actually it didn't come down by as much as I expected, but there was a little bit of side-by-side battling at the start of the lap, I suppose, wasn't there? For now, though, the danger man really seems to be Seth Henry. Seth Henry on the tail of Harry Mangan. A bit more, really, than Robin Cronin is to him. There are the lead two. Nick White with that fastest lap, a 34.563. Best part of 2 seconds now up the road. In fact, over 2 seconds at the end of Sector 1 from Conor Garlick. But Conor won't mind too much. Second place in the championship would be going his way here. And with it would be that 3rd class win of the year to level with his brother Luke. Just to rub salt into the wounds for Luke Garlick, who already is probably not in the best of moods this afternoon. Conor pitches the car into Westfield, down the hill. Nick White, I don't think he's going to be catchable really at the moment, does he? What a season though that Nick White has had. What a couple of seasons Nick White's had really. Coming through the Ginetta GT Academy, where he again as a rookie driver was up there contending for overall race wins pretty much instantly. Made the step into the GT Championship this year and was immediately contending with the pro drivers. So Nick White now every bit as quick as the pros. Where does he go next? Does he come back to try and win the championship outright next year? Might there be a chance for him to go and race in the British GT Championship, perhaps? Because Ginetta, of course, has a presence on that grid. It's always been a big part of the Ginetta racing ethos, hasn't it? That you can start your career with Ginetta and continue it onwards and upwards through the racing ladder. So maybe we'll see Nick White doing a little bit of that in the future. But he is, at this point of the season, really one of the fastest drivers on the track, which is very impressive. Harry Mangan, one of the best defenders on the track right now, you'd have to say. He's got Seth Henry climbing all over him, but just can't find a way through. And if anything, Robert Cronin dropping back now from these two. Maybe he's had the best of his tyres. Sun now starting to shine in their eyes. You can almost see into their eyes. Look, in fact, you can see into Seth Henry's eyes as they come into Surtees. That head-on shot is a fantastic one in these late afternoon sunny conditions. And then disappear into the shade again. The driver's eyes get a little bit of a rest. The drivers themselves do not, because certainly if your name is Harry Mangan, you might have some more defending to do here in the near future. We've got this lap and one more still to go. And Seth Henry wants this 4th position. He carries good speed out of Hawthorns into Westfield, but no way through on the way into the corner. Cars really hop and bounce their way over that curb on the inside line, drop down through Dingledale up into Sheen Curve. And Seth Henry running out of opportunity now. Look how much closer they are to Ed Akers there. You could see Ed then as they turned into Sterling's. 2.2 seconds was the gap at the beginning of the lap. I think he's still going to be safe. I don't think they're going to catch him. But that gap that was up near 4 seconds, over 4 seconds, I think at one point, creeping down and down and down. Nick White, though, is 1 lap from home and on course for another outright victory. It's been a fantastic season, this, for Nick White, the second half in particular. He has won a couple of races overall now. And 2.6 seconds is a very healthy margin to take into the final 2.5 miles of racing. Through the dip comes this battle pack behind. They're now only 1.7 seconds behind Harry Mangan. They took about half a second out of him that time, but out of Ed Akers, I should say. Ed should be pretty secure, though, I think, in 3rd. Harry Mangan, of course, will pick up the points for 2nd in the pro class, but he was destined to finish behind both Garlick brothers anyway before this weekend, having not raced with us at the first event at Alton Park. Also had a couple of non-finishes later on in the season, which kind of used up his drop score quota. So Harry Mangan 4th in the championship, but would love to end the season 4th in the race, wouldn't he? Can he keep Seth Henry behind them? They drop down through Hawthorns. For the last time of asking, is there one more opportunity to overtake maybe for Seth Henry? Well, if there is, it's going to have to be surely into or out of the final corner. And if that move is going to happen, it has to begin now, really, with a good run through Sheen, a really good run through Sterling's, and try to force the defensive move out of Mangan into the final corner. I don't think Seth is really close enough to do that yet. What can he do through the left-hander? closes in a little bit maybe, but all of this happening some way behind Nick White, who already is exiting the final corner, heading for the checkered flag and about to win another race in the Protyre Motorsport Ginetta GT Championship. Checkered flag for Nick White and a dominant victory as well, beating Conor Garlick, who will hang on to second place in the championship at least. Third for Ed Akers, fourth is going to be Harry Mangion in the end, Seth Henry fifth, and Robert Cronin comes home in sixth, but it was a great battle between those three for much of the 20-minute race. Nick White, though, will be very, very pleased with his day's work. 2 races, 2 race wins. It's a shame that we didn't get to see him go toe-to-toe with Mckenzie Douglass today. I think that could have been a really interesting situation, but Mackenzie's car breaking down on the opening lap unfortunately took him out of contention. Luke Garlick as well wasn't a factor in that one either after that turn 1 collision with Robert Cronin. But it was an exciting race nonetheless, and Nick White will be very, very pleased to have ended his 2024 season with a race win. So as the cars head back to the pit lane, this provisionally the result of our final race of the season in the Protyre Motorsport Ginetta GT Championship. Raceway Motorsport's Nick White celebrates another win with Conor Garlick second and Ed Akers the top guest driver home in third. Harry Mangion fourth, Seth Henry fifth, Robert Cronin, Callum Noble, Peter Mangion were behind with Luke Garlick and Mckenzie Douglass unfortunately early non-finishers. The AM victory goes to Nick White, the Pro Class won by Conor Garlick, and with that he will secure second place in the Pro Championship. So the car's destined for the pit lane again, and with one more Ginetta race still to come today. Don't go anywhere, we've got about 20 minutes time and then we'll have the GT Academy drivers out for their championship deciding race, and that should be one that is definitely not to be missed. But the GT drivers are done for the day, they're done for the season, and they pull into the podium area. The team there to celebrate, Raceway Motorsport, who have prepared the Nick White car all year long. An immaculate looking car. It never seems to have a mark on it really, and that's because Nick White, as well as being a very quick and consistent driver, is also a very clean driver. You very rarely see Nick White getting caught up in any on-track scrapes, and as a result I think he has the respect really of all of the other drivers on the grid too. Late afternoon sunshine, he emerges from the car as a race winner once more. Well done to Nick White, and that is the money shot, isn't it? A fantastic way to complete his weekend, to complete his season. For Nick White, that is a 20th class victory from 21 races. The only blot on his copybook this season was an utterly disastrous second place in the first race at Donington Park, which was a race that Matt Shaw won. But for Nick White, that was the only race that he failed to win. A worst finish of second. He's finished every single race of the season. That is how you win a championship. Mckenzie Douglass has won a championship as well, that being the Pro Class Championship. Conor Garlick is now confirmed as second place in the championship for Zentek Motorsport, with his brother Luke Garlick having to settle for third after that heartbreaking off at the start of that race. Harry Mangion, as I said, stuck down in fourth place, having missed a couple of races at the start of the season. In the AM class, meanwhile, Nick White, as I said, had already wrapped that championship, but look at that, 689 points, over 200 points clear. 252 is that clear of Peter Mangion in second position. Matt Shaw third, despite not racing here on the final day. Raceway Motorsport 1, 2, 3, with Callum Noble, Paul Livesey and Sean Fleming at the bottom of the points table. So the drivers then will continue their celebrations momentarily. In the meantime, let's take a look back at some of the highlights. Well, at the start of the final race of the season for the Protyre Motorsport Ginetta GT Championship, Nick White had it all going on in his mirrors, really. He had an early challenge from Robert Cronin, but he was then tapped into a spin by Luke Garlick. Garlick's car stuck in the gravel, went no further, and that was his chance of finishing second in the championship. Well and truly over. After a safety car period to extricate his car from the gravel trap, all eyes were then on Robert Cronin and Harry Mangion, both of whom were battling with Seth Henry for a position outside of the top three. Initially, Mangion made his move at Surtees corner, but Seth Henry stood his ground, and it was a good side-by-side battle all the way down the hill and into Hawthorns, with Robert Cronin keeping a watching brief behind. Robert undoubtedly had good pace in the first part of the race, but it was a struggle to make his way through the traffic. As Mangion went through, Cronin followed him by, but that would not be the last we saw of Seth Henry in this race. Robert Cronin then had a go at getting past Harry Mangion. This he achieved with slightly less success. They were side by side through Druids. Mangan stood his ground, got back to the inside line into Graham Hill Bend, and stuck out on the outside line. Cronin was slow off the corner, and that opened the door for Seth Henry to opportunistically move back through and reclaim the position. All of this going on, though, some way behind Nick White, who completed a brilliant season with another race win in the final race of the year.